All right, we are today starting Genesis 19 now. Last time we looked at in Genesis 18 a few weeks back, and it was this story of God appearing to Abram, and there were, if you remember, there were three men who appeared to him. There was the Lord himself in the form of a man, and then two angels with him. And at the end of promising Sarah a child, the Lord then, because he sees Abram as a friend, reveals his plans for him, and he tells him what his plan is regarding Sodom and Gomorrah, that there's a cry that has come before him from those who are being oppressed and suffering in these cities, and has come to the Lord, and he's going to see. And Abram pleads now for Sodom. And if you remember that whole interchange where he tries he whittles the Lord down to just 10 righteous. The first question is, why does Abraham do this? Why does Abraham care about Sodom, that he's insistent upon interceding for this wicked city?
Well, because Lot's there and he treats Lot like a son.
Yeah, exactly right. This is about, and that's important to get that. This is not about saving a city as it is about saving Lot. That's he is like a son to him. He's been with him all this time since Lot's father had died. And so his pleading for that city, and even down to 10, and just the patience of God and the forbearance, he's not put off when he goes from 50 to 45 to 40 to 30 to 20 to 10. How many times is that? Like 6 times he intercedes. And the Lord hears and is willing to do that all for him. That's a great encouragement for us. So I'm thinking, we plead for our country here. Like, there's got to be 10 of us in here, right? There's got to be 10 in this area that God would spare us some here. So, well, let's take a look now. We pick it up from there. The angels get to Sodom, and we shall see how this goes. Now, remember, before we get into the story, I want to set some parameters for us of how we're to interpret it, because a lot of times the person that we focus in on is Lot, because he's the one interacting with everybody, and Lot does things that are really disturbing in this story. However, having said that, Lot is not the one on trial here. It is Sodom. And in fact, Peter refers to Lot as righteous Lot. He is not the one condemned in these stories. It is the men of Sodom. Lot is part of that, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Lot in this story. But oftentimes, we tend to shift focus away from the wickedness of Sodom and toward Lot, and kind of bash on him. And I think that's not where the story wants us to go. And again, we have to keep in mind, Peter himself, the Apostle Peter, refers to Lot as righteous Lot in one of his letters. So the scriptures interpret scriptures that Lot is not the villain here.
What?
Lot is not the villain in this story. But let's take a look and go through what's going on here. So Genesis, let's see, I lost it already. Okay, 19. And Bob Fowler, would you start us off here? Verses 1, 2, 3.
The two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly. So they turned aside to him and entered his house, and he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate.
Okay. All right. So the two angels now arrive in Sodom. Okay. Now they come in the evening. And let's take a look at Lot's reception of them. What does it say about his reception of them?
He was hospitable.
Yeah, yeah. Look, let's kind of break down what he does. So he sees them, and what does he do first?
First, he says, "My lords."
Yeah, yeah. He sees them. Well, let's get to the first. He rises to meet them, bows his face to the earth, and he calls them my lords. All right. And he calls himself,
Servant.
yeah, basically, I am your servant. Um, and he says to them, spend the night and what?
Wash your feet.
Okay. Now, that reception there, does that ring a bell to you? Does that sound familiar? Doesn't, it should be.
You mean so
Jesus washes the feet of the disciples.
Well, you have that part, sure, the washing of the feet, the whole reception there.
But
See,
didn't Abraham do the same thing to?
Abraham did exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
When they came to Abram's house, he rose to greet them. He called them my Lord. He played the part of the servant to them. He brought food to them. He brought water for their feet to be washed. Yeah, this is it's written in a way so that you are thinking of Abraham here. This is the hospitality of Abraham that he showed the Lord. And so the angel's plan is to do what?
spend the night in the downtown,
Uh,
or the town center.
spend the night in the town square.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside. We'll be, it's a temperate climate at that point, I'm sure. We'll just camp out in the middle of the square. That's fine. And normally that would be a fine thing to do. That's not a big deal, and it shouldn't be a big deal in many places. It's kind of like, I don't know. In these areas, you could, most parts of, like in Amesbury or parts in some of the surrounding towns up here, you could leave your car door open. You can leave your house open. It's not that dangerous. You wouldn't do that if you're going to Dorchester or going to Brooklyn or some major San Francisco right now. So they're like, okay, we'll spend the night in the town square. Lot's response is telling.
It's like, don't do that. Come with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, he pressed them strongly. Don't do this. So right even there, and then he made a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Okay. So really, right away, you should be thinking well of Lot here. Lot is devoted to the service and protection of these guests.
With Abraham, God, assuming Jesus was there, and he'd already met him before and recognized him. But with Lot, would Lot have? I mean, first off, God's not there; it's the angels. Would he have recognized them as being angels, or just recognizing them as people passing through that needed help?
That's a great question. They come in the form of men. There is saying that some entertained angels unaware. Remember that in Hebrews?
Yeah.
That I think this is a reference to that. He entertains angels unawares. I don't think he knows that they are angels. I'm sure that they would have been good-looking guys, being angels. That's why the town becomes very attracted to them. But it doesn't say anything about their looks, just that they come. We don't know. They're not, when Lot, as far as we know in the story, it doesn't seem that Lot is aware of who they are or what their business is. He takes responsibility for strangers coming into the town, and Lot knows the the nature and the wickedness of Sodom and the danger that these men would have been in. He's aware of that. And so he's insistent upon bringing them under his roof for protection there.
Why would he be sitting at the gate at that point? Is that because he does that regularly? Or
That's a good question. I think he is, doesn't sitting at the gate mean something like he's,
That's where the leading men of the town met a lot of times to do whatever, chat.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's something. Let me just, because there's some other reference to people sitting at the gates, and let me just see if I got a quick note on that. Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. The opening scene parallels the start of chapter 18, although the setting is now subtle differences. Okay. He invites him to spend that. That doesn't say in this here. But I think you're right, Rob. I think that he is a leading man in the city.
There it is right here. From the Reformation Study Bible, it says that Lot was sitting in the city gate indicates his status as a respected member of the community. However, as verse 6 through 9 reveal, he is clearly powerless to stop the sinful actions of his fellow citizens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So he's a man of respected status. So again, you the way our story presents Lot is he is a righteous man here. He is doing exactly what he should be doing at this point. He welcomes them, he wants to protect them, he plays the hospitality is a big deal. And he plays the host to them, he plays the servant to them, takes care of their needs, provides for their comfort, and understanding, I think, the city, the situation in the city especially presses them strongly. But also it could have been just no, you're a guest in my city. We're not going to let you stay in the streets. You're coming with me. So yeah, it's interesting. So all right, so that's the first start. Let's pick it up from there. Verses 4 to 11. Bob Thomas, you want to get that for us?
sure. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man surrounded the house. And they called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them." Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand back." And they said, "This fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." Then they pressed hard against the man Lot, and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hand and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out, groping for the door.
All right. Wow. Let's talk about the men of Sodom. We'll get to Lot in a minute here, but let's talk about the men of Sodom. What does this text say about them?
They were very perverse.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Huh? So the men of Sodom, notice how many of them were involved in this.
So all of them.
Yeah. Both young and old, to the last man. So this mob of men surround the house. And they call to Lot, "Where are the men that came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them." So they want them to come out so we can get to know them, right? We want to have a little chat with them, talk things out, see where they're from. They seem like interesting guys. We want to get to know them, right? Is that what's going on here?
They want to know them a little better than that,
Yes.
a little more intimately.
Right? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Of course, you know what that means. Is they want to rape them. So again, this is the wickedness of this town. It's not simply the homosexuality is a big part of this. The perversion of it is deep, so that they are the same language that's used of Adam knew his wife is now referred to these men wanting to know these guests. But it's also that these are strangers. And why do they do this? Why do they want to rape these strangers and do that to them? I don't know if you know the situation here of what's the appeal of these guests coming in here for them. Why target these men, these angels?
Is it to make them like themselves?
That's interesting. Do they? It seems like it's in our text they're described as angels, and I think there is this sort of a reminder of Genesis 6, when the sons of God saw the daughters of men and took whom they wanted. There seems to be that. So there's a little bit of a strange flesh going on here in a couple ways. One is that it's men with men, but it's also men with angels. So you're dealing with two different realms that are never to cross in this way. The men and angels are not to interact in this kind of manner.
It
And
it makes me think of when you used to hear of in prisons that happening to show who was boss.
oh yeah. So I'd say this, a couple of things. I think there are two lines that are crossed here. One is let me pull this over here. One second. Let's see. See if this works. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay, two lines across. One is that men are sexually pursuing men instead of women, because you'll notice that's part of the discussion there. When Lot offers the two daughters to them, they have no taste for the daughters. They have no interest in that. They are pursuing men sexually. And the second line is that men are sexually pursuing, whether they're aware of it or not, angels. And so this crossing of realms, you're crossing barriers that are not to be crossed, which is what we saw. Adam and Eve want to be like the gods. They want to be like the heavenly beings in taking of the fruit. They're crossing a line. They're not to cross that line. And in Genesis 6, the sons of God crossing a line, taking the daughters of men. Same thing here, crossing lines in natural relations for unnatural relations, showing the depth of their perversity here. So let's see. But why else are they targeting angels here? These particular men. You'll notice another facet of their wickedness is this. Why don't they, if they're so sexually perverse, why don't they rape Lot? Why do they want to rape these men?
They want to rape people that aren't from their town.
Yeah. So these men are strangers. They have no defenders or family in Sodom. So they are basically, this is why strangers are so often abused, is because there's no one, they have no context. You can get away with it. No one misses them. If they go missing, no one notices. If Lot goes missing, he has family. If one of his sons-in-laws gets taken, they have family, they have defenders, they have connections. When you have strangers coming in, they have no defenders, they have no protectors, and therefore they're completely vulnerable, and wicked people target them because they know they can get away with it. They can get away with it. There's no police force here.
So it's just targeting the vulnerable.
Target the vulnerable. That's what makes them vulnerable is they are, I mean, I'm sure that they are probably strapping young men who could take care of themselves with maybe a couple of the guys, but when you got a mob of them up there, they know they can do as they please with them, and no one's going to stop them. Who's going to hold them accountable for this?
Yeah, the whole town's there.
Yeah.
All part of it.
Yeah. And that's why you notice the difference between the way that Lot treats them. Lot, the vulnerable men who have no family, no home in this place, are treated as absolute guests of honor. And as you'll see, to our shock, they are the most important people to Lot at this time. He will do whatever he has to, even offering his daughters to
Why
protect.
would that be a shock? Because he knows they're angels. Isn't he doing what Abraham did?
Well,
Abraham was willing
he-
to give up his son, and now Lot is willing to give up his daughters. Isn't that kind of the same?
That's interesting. That's a really interesting point. I never thought of that. That's really interesting, of Abraham offering his son later on. And here Lot is willing to offer his daughters. That's the question, is do we know does Lot know that they're angels at this point? I don't know.
It said in the beginning, the angels came to the gate.
Yes,
Yeah, but
that's
he doesn't
information.
know.
That's information for us. But it's not necessarily that Lot knew that they were angels. So that's a really good question. So, but you can see that Lot is, and I want to defend the guy a little bit in this way, because it sounds horrible. He offers their daughter, do to them whatever you please, only do nothing to these men. The point is, he is desperately trying to protect these men with everything he can think of to do that. And that's one of the things about hospitality in the Middle East, is like, you really do, you treat your guests better than you treat your family. They take precedence when they're in your house. That's how they do it over there. I'm telling you. We had, I shared this before, I think we had when we went to Africa the first time, Ray Dosty, Ray was one of our, on the team, and he was staying with a family, and the husband and the wife, they have a small place. They gave him their master bedroom, and they slept with the kids. That's how they do it. They didn't clear the kids out and give him the kids' room, and they gave him the best room in the house. That's how they treated their guests there. And so there's this hospitality code that when someone comes under your roof, you protect them with life and limb, whatever you can, to do that. It's a maddening situation. What do you do? It's like Sophie's Choice. It's one of those situations. It's a maddening situation. There is no good solution to it. It is so depraved and so wicked that Lot has to resort to something so horrifying as presenting his daughters to them, though they immediately turn him down. And again, you don't know what Lot's thinking. It could be, the fact is that Lot knows these guys too, and that he is maybe just trying to stall or something. I don't know what he's doing, but the point is, Lot is not the one on trial in this story. It's these men, and you can see their utter depravity in the way they're behaving. So
Can I make a point and an
Yes, please.
observation? So in looking at verse 9, it says, but they said, stand back. And they said, this fellow came to sojourn and he has become the judge. Are they talking about Lot? If he was a
Yeah.
sojourner and now he is a respectable
Yeah.
citizen in the community. So,
Yeah.
may not like him, but because of who he is, they have to have some control. But do you know that there is a story in Chronicle in Judges in chapter 19, that it's a very similar story? There was a sojourner, and they were in Ephraim, I think it is, that there was an old man who saw the sojourner with his concubine and took him in to give him shelter. And the people in the town wanted the same thing. They wanted to have their way with that sojourner. And the old man, they gave the people of the town his daughter and the visitor's concubine.
He actually didn't give his daughter. He
Oh.
offered his daughter and the
He offered.
concubine.
Okay, so he just gave the concubine,
He
but
only gave the concubine. Yeah,
ultimately they
Yeah.
killed her, basically.
they abused her all night and killed her. It's like
So-
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it was just Lot that I mean, we're not just seeing it with Lot, we're seeing it in other points that's because, like you said, their hospitality to a stranger and men certainly had a lot more value than women.
Yeah. It's
I'm still feeling a little bit like, why target these angels? Well, whether they knew they were angels or not, they were probably superior to them. And consensual or not, by them raping them, they kind of make them like themselves. It's like, okay, now they've had sex with men too, whether it was their wishes or not. It kind of degraded these two visitors.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to their own level. And I almost feel like they were pursuing that too, so that there would be no one better than them.
That's
That's a
interesting.
great point. I think that's a really good point, that there's something about a level of depravity and wickedness that you want everyone around you to be just as depraved and defiled as you are. That
Yeah.
misery loves company on a thing. And I think you're probably right there. They want to they probably have a purity about them. If these are angels, there's probably especially desirous, because they want to defile all that is pure and holy. So yeah, it's
And that would make a little sense too, where they're saying now all of a sudden, oh, Lot, you're gonna be our judge? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna say you're better than us? And so now they said they're gonna treat him even worse.
yeah. And he's, he comes to them as, he's supposed to be this respected man in the city, and they have no respect for any kind of authority. These are absolutely lawless men. So, I mean, the wickedness of Sodom is absolutely included in that, is their homosexual passions and desires. But you can see it goes so much beyond that. It is their the way, in fact, other passages refer to Sodom in their injustice and the way that they oppressed people. It wasn't just their sexual depravity. They often go together. This kind of a perversity and violence. It really brings you back to Genesis 6, that every evil intent was, every thought of their hearts was only evil all the time. And the kind of the depravity laid out. It's a story. Genesis 19 kind of takes the description of the wickedness in Genesis 6 and puts a story to it that makes your hair stand up on edge. It shows it to you in a way that is in a small scale that really reveals the depravity. So Genesis 6 just tells you we are depraved. Genesis 19 shows you what that looks like, and gives you a vivid. So when you come out of this, you're like, burn this place down, just destroy it, just destroy every last one of them. In some sense, it's kind of how I felt after the hearing about the Hamas attacks in Israel. Right? How did you feel when you heard that? When you saw the news reports towards 1,300 killed?
They wired 20 kids together and burned them to death.
Yeah. They beheaded the babies. They just did the most atrocious things imaginable. You're watching that, and even people who hate Israel could not say, could not defend this, even though they're trying to, some of them, which is horrifying. But you see that kind of evil and depravity, and you're like, just burn it down, burn it all down, just destroy this place. And that's just a small scale of it. And you really have to restrain yourself and remember that there are a lot of Palestinians in this place who are held hostage to Hamas. How wicked is Hamas that they who was it that said this about them? There will never be peace until Hamas loves their children more than they hate us. It was, I think, Golda Meir said that. They put their headquarters under hospitals and in school places and they use the kids as shields to them all the time.
But I don't think they're even from there, are they? I thought they were from Iran.
Palestinians?
No,
No.
the Hamas.
No,
Oh,
no, Hezbollah.
Funded.
Oh,
Yeah, they were
Hezbollah.
funded. Yeah.
You know, the point that you and Jack were making, I find interesting, because I remember the time, Pastor, you made a point about when somebody's at work and the boss is on, and he continues to do a good job, how he incurs the hatred and wrath of the majority who see it as party time, but this one guy wants to keep working hard.
Yeah.
And there's a desire to bring that one person down to their level.
Oh yeah.
And so we're in line with what Jack was talking about, the same thing here. We're all homosexuals, and here's these two guys that think they're on top of the world. We'll bring them down to our level.
Yeah.
Involuntarily maybe, but they'll be at our level. They'll be whatever, weirdos too.
Yeah, it's and somebody mentioned the prison move of that power move over they often do that with the new guys coming in.
Mm.
All right, so but I want you to know something else here. So they pull back. Lot is just desperate, and then the man as they pressed against the man Lot, and they drew near to break the door down. So I think, has he come out to them? Yeah, Lot went out to the men at the entrance and shut the door up. That's crazy. That took some real courage. So Lot goes out to the men at the entrance and shut the door after him. So you have to understand, so the way that the homes were set up typically was there would be a house and then there would be like a gate around it. And so he went out to the front gate, closed the door behind him. He's out there with these men. And then his family would be in the house. He's trying to find some way to bring some sense back to this. And they're pressing against him now. And they're basically telling they're about to tell him, we're going to deal with you worse than with them. They're going to murder him. They're going to just rape Lot and murder him. That's what they say. And then at that point, they're pressing against him, and drew near to break the door down. And then the men reach out their hands. They bring Lot into the house with them, and they shut the door. So they bring him in, get in the house, they shut the door. And then they strike the men with blindness who were at the entrance of the house. I guess the house, so we're right outside the house, I guess. Wow. Okay. And then they wear themselves out, groping for the door. All right. So now you have another facet of their wickedness is the persistence in their evil. I mean, they will not be denied. So we have this pressing against Lot, breaking down the door, and then what happens when they're struck blind?
They still try getting in, but they can't find it. They're blind. They just keep groping for it, but can't find the door.
Yeah, still groping for the door when they've been blinded. They don't give up. That's just stunning. There's nothing stopping these guys. They are determined to satisfy their craven appetites. So that's the men of Sodom. All right, let's pick it up from there. I'm going to start a new page here. And Jack, you want to get the next section there, verses 12 to 14.
Then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of the place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against its people had become great before the Lord, and the Lord has destroyed it. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters, "Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city." But he seemed to his sons-in-laws to be jesting.
So the angels speak to Lot. And what do they say?
They
Get
asked-
out of town.
Say in, Bob?
Get out of town.
Yeah. Get out. We are about to destroy the place. But first he says, he asks him a question.
Who
Is
else
there
is in here,
anything else?
basically?
Anyone else here? And who does he mention?
Family.
Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, anyone you have in the city, basically anyone with you, bring them up. Again, it also reminds you back to the Genesis 6 story, because there we had, Noah. Lot is kind of like a Noah here. He's the one who is not part of the wickedness of the world. And Noah not only secures salvation for himself, but for his wife and his 3 sons and their wives. So there was 8 of them altogether. In this case, he's not as effective as Noah. He doesn't have any sons. He only has 2 daughters, but he does have 2 sons-in-laws. And what do we learn about his sons-in-law?
They were like the people of Noah's time. They
Yeah.
just laughed at him.
Yeah, Lot's sons-in-law.
Were they already married to his daughters, or was this their betrothed?
Well, they would have been betrothed, because he tells them that his daughters have not known a man yet. So they have
Yeah,
not.
that's why I didn't think they were son-in-laws yet.
Yeah, so they're called sons-in-law, like Joseph was a son-in-law, was betrothed to Mary.
Right.
He didn't know her. So they were committed. They may not even have met his daughters, or had, in one sense, they would have had, these were the 2 men who were going to be marrying his daughters.
Yeah.
That's all we know. They may not have had any relationship with the family at that point. And Lot's sons-in-laws, what do we see from them?
They didn't
they were
take it
joking.
seriously.
They thought he was joking. All right. Now, as one question is I wonder, I'm guessing, because it said early on that all the men to the last man surrounded the house.
Were they in there?
Were his sons-in-laws part of that mob?
They could be using that word all hyperbolically.
Yeah.
They don't involve these sons-in-law, in fact.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they may think he's joking because they don't see anything wrong with what's been happening.
Yeah. So we don't, that's just the dilemma with this question is it, were the sons-in-law, and that leads to another question of, like, all right, if his daughter, when Lot offers his daughters, they are betrothed to these young men, was the hope that maybe that might cause a rift, cause some, if they would have accepted that offer, might that have caused some kind of division among the mob, since there would be certainly people wanting to protect the daughters among them, possibly. I don't know. Things to think about. But we're not sure. But the point, I think, is clear, is that we have it is a reminder of, again, the Noah story. They were eating, drinking. They didn't see it coming. What does Jesus say about the men in the days of Noah? They didn't. They were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage. And when the flood came, they weren't ready for it. They didn't see it coming. It seemed so far away. How could it possibly be that God would destroy this glorious place, that there would be destruction coming? All right, let's pick it up from there. Teresa, you want to get the next section for us?
So are you gonna address, I mean, there's no shortage, I'm sure, of women that are appalled that he offered his daughters.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say anything else about that? I mean, what do you think of that?
No, I think you know, we're only given the bare information that we need to know for the story. I think we have to take what we know from it. We don't know what Lot was thinking. Again, someone mentioned, who was it mentioned? Claudette had mentioned the story in Judges that had a very similar thing where the guy, in order to deal with the mob, offers these women instead of the guests, doing everything he can to protect this guest. So there's that hospitality code of it. Might explain some of it, but also the point is, like, the man is in an unworkable position. This is so shocking and so horrifying. What do you do with that? You know, he's trying everything he can. He knows he has to protect these men. That's sort of the thing. You protect them with your life. And whatever he can. So he's like, if I have to offer my daughters, maybe that's what I don't. Yeah.
He's making decisions in panic mode. So what can I do?
Yeah, I mean, again, and I would just say, is like, what would you do if you were him?
You know, he may really have no intentions of offering his daughters, but he's trying to offer something that throttles back guys who are hot to trot, as they say.
Something like that. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's the whole thing, is like, what do? You know, at that point. It's so horrifying. There is no good answer to this. Because the offering the men is not an option for him. He cannot do that. He can't throw the men out there and say, do as you please with them. He is sworn to protect them. That's the whole thing about hospitality, is the people who come under the protection of your roof, they become like the kings and you become the servants. So you have to protect them and do all you can for their sake. And your life and the life of your family is secondary. Their life and their well-being is first. That's the hospitality code. And you can, you know, it's very unbecoming. It's very disturbing to us, but what do you do? There's no police to call. You know, there's no one else there's no 911 number you can ring and say, you know, help us out here. You know, what do you do? There's no place to hide.
I certainly wouldn't offer my daughter.
Well, I know. I mean, I you know, but what do you do? What do you do is the question. See, you see what I'm saying? It's like, that's why it's like, you know, you can't read the story and come away with Lot on trial as someone who did wickedly here. The man is he perfect? Of course not. But do you think he wanted to do this? Do you think he wanted to send his daughters out there? You think that made him what a thrill that would be?
No.
You know, you know, and the idea is that you know, it's just an unworkable situation. That's what you're supposed to come away with when you read this. It's like, this is just horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying.
The other thing too is that they didn't view women in a high regard. I mean, they were like cattle. It's like, you know, take my cow.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that at this point, because I don't think that that's true across the board either. I literally just, you know, you've got a person that's in a situation, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
What can I do? I have to protect these people.
Mob violence is frightening.
Yeah,
It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And again, it's kind of like that. And that's the whole thing. It's like everyone, it is so depraved that even righteous people do depraved things in depraved times. That it's like that's the dilemma you're in. It's like even a man like Lot, who is a righteous man, who wants to do right. As you can see, you can clearly see when things are normal, he is the perfect host. He does everything right. But wicked, depraved times make even the righteous do wicked things. There's that's why it's like I can't defend him in one sense of like it's a horrifying thing that he would do that, but on the other hand, it's like I can't come down too hard on him because it's like, what do you do? I mean, again, it's like that's Sophie's choice. Like you have, they're going to demand a child, they're going to kill you all, or you can give up one of your children. What are you going to do?
and this makes me believe more that he had no idea these were angels. Because if he was, he probably would have turned to them and said, call God,
Yeah, that's a great point. So like think about this situation. It's like this is the horrifying situation you're in. You're in Nazi Germany now, and you are hiding a family of Jews in your basement. And the Nazi general soldier comes to you and says, "You give up those Jews in your basement, or you give up your Jews, show us where they are, and hand them over to us, or we will kill your child." There's your dilemma. What are you going to do?
there's no right answer.
What do you do with that? I mean, because on the one hand, it's like, okay, if I say, my child is the most important thing in the world to me, and then you hand over like 20 Jews that you've been protecting, that's 20 lives, they're going to torture and slaughter them. On the other hand, it's like, this is your child. How could you do that? Do you see, it is so wicked and depraved that you end up in this tragic choice. There is no choice. There is no good thing. What Lot is seeing here is these men, if he hands them over to them, they're going to abuse them and kill them. And he will be a part of their wickedness because he handed them over to them. So yeah, I know it's troubling. I know it's a mess. It's a mess. And I don't
I think you said a mob is frightening, and that's true. And I think in desperation, the person who's facing the mob, the short-term plan is to do something to stop the mob at that point, stop the advance. We'll deal with after that, but right now it has a momentum of its own, a mob attack. You want to stop it right now and see what we can do next, that kind of thing.
Yeah. He's just, and again, that's why I said it's like, I don't want to spend too much time on Lot because this story is not about him. It's about, Lot is the foil, the one who really, through this interaction, reveals just the utter depravity of Sodom, that they are so violent and wicked. They are unrestrained. They have no desire for even normal sexual relations. He's offering to them, again, at least a normal, not the rape part of it, but the sexual relation, a man and a woman. They want none of that. They want men. And they want these angelic beings, whether they realize what they are or not. They're seeking those to take advantage of those who have no defense. And it's just awful. And Peter makes it clear to us what makes Lot righteous is that he's in anguish over this wickedness. He is not taking part in it. He is separate from it. He is in anguish over the wickedness of what's happening in Sodom. His righteous conscience is just, he despises this. And you can see that. He is doing anything he can to try to stop this. He's helpless to stop it. He can't do it. But these angels do. They can put a stop to it. And therefore, when you now see the scene where God is going to judge Sodom, you're not wondering why. You're not thinking, oh, give him another chance, God. give them another chance. They deserve it. You're thinking, no, burn it to the ground. Just burn it to the ground, every last one of them. So
what did Lot think when the angel said to him, do you have anybody else? Because we're about to destroy the place. Do you think then he knows what they represent, or is he confused too?
well, he
he
knows
said-
now. Yeah.
He does.
Because they said that God has sent them to destroy.
Yeah, that's what
So whether he believes that they're angels or that God just sent them and they're men, they've got the strength of God behind them.
Yeah, I think I think he understands they are not human beings when they strike them all blind.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true.
Part of that too. So they strike him blind. He knows now what they are, and they say, "Get up, get out, take everyone with you that you can." And it's the same thing with Rahab and Canaan. She will protect her family from the wrath that's coming. Lot is now scraggling to try to get his family out of there. And so he's only able to get his wife and 2 daughters to go with him. And even there, he lingered. Let's take a look at that. Verses 15 to, how much time we got? 3:11. Yeah, let's finish up here. 15 to 22.
Could you make that a little bigger, please, Pastor?
Okay. Okay. And we're in here. Okay, here we go.
Thank you. As morning, the angels urged Lot, saying, Up, take your wife and your 2 daughters are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city. But he lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him. And they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought him out, one said, Escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. And Lot said to them, Oh no, my lords, behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot escape to the hills, lest the disaster overtake me and I die. Behold, the city is near enough to flee, and it is a little one. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my life will be saved? He said to them. Behold, I grant you this favor also, that I will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I can do nothing till you arrive there. Therefore, the name of the city was called Zor.
Okay. All right. So it's now morning. What's going on with Lot?
It seems like he doesn't want to leave.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit here. So Lot lingers. Why do you think he lingers here?
Hoping that the fiancés will come.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, well, first
He's
off,
in shock.
there's the shock. He's
The
basically
devil he knows maybe better than the devil he doesn't know outside.
so this is his life. His life in Sodom is over now.
And he had a lot of wealth there.
Yeah, his home, his position, he's a respectable position there.
He had flocks of sheep. When they split up with Abraham, was because it wasn't big enough for both of their herds.
Yep.
He
All
loses
his
all of that.
possessions, he's
Yeah.
losing everything. Are going to be swept away in the punishment of the city. He lingers, and I think it's possibly just realizing that he's losing, but also you did mention his sons-in-laws were just mentioned here. Perhaps trying to convince his sons-in-laws to come with. We're not told exactly why, but he lingers. But what happens next?
They took him by his hand.
Yeah, the men seize, we'll call the angels here. The angels seize him And all of them, right? So I'm assuming they each grabbed 2 of them. His wife and daughters, all 4 of them, right? And brought them out. And what does it say about that?
Don't look behind you. Run for your life.
Do not look back.
Yeah, why do they do that? Why do the angels seize him? Because they're about to bring destruction, and Lot, they warn Lot, get out, and he's not going. And why don't they just destroy the place?
Because they're gonna save him.
The Lord being merciful to him. And so the question is, they brought him out again. Lot at that point again is in shock and disbelief, whatever it is not moving. He's kind of lingering for whatever reason. He's not heeding the warning, and they drag him out because they're not going to. They're determined to save him. And why is the Lord being so merciful to him?
For Abraham.
Yeah. This is the answer to Abraham's prayer. And that was the whole point of that intercession. It was not about saving that city, it was about saving Lot. And Abraham, remember, Abraham was willing to take 300 men and go fight off a whole army to save Lot earlier in Sodom. And the Lord brings him out for Abraham's sake. So, all right, escape for your life, lest you be swept away. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. Here's a question. He doesn't want to go to the hills. But why doesn't Lot want to go to the hills?
He says because he thinks that this disaster will catch up with him there, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay. Any thoughts on that? I don't know if you have any commentaries or about why that would be the case. Okay, lest the disaster overtake me and I die. He prefers to go to where does he want to go?
Zoar,
Okay. Which is what?
another city nearby.
A little one.
To a little city called Zoar. And they grant him that favor. It could be the heart. He's an older guy at this point. Remember now he's been, let's see, Abraham was 75 when God called him. This is now about 25 years later. Lot is, how old was Lot when he brought with him? Lot could be, 60 years old for all we know. I'm not sure how old he is, but he feels that he would not be able to survive in the hills. And I can kind of see that. I mean, you're going to be up there having to forage, that's really rough living. He wants to be in a city where, he can have access to things and support. And so he is granted that favor. Perhaps the disaster he's worried about is his own death, because it's too rough to live in the hills at that age. I mean, that's pretty tough going out there in the wilderness. Okay. Let's finish up the story. 23 to 26. Rob, you want to finish this off here?
23 to 26. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife behind him looked back and became a pillar of salt.
Okay. All right. So the sun had risen So Lot came to Zoar, and then the Lord rained sulfur and fire out of heaven on Sodom and Gomorrah. Now those cities, and so about Lot's wife. Lot's wife looks back. Let's talk about that.
Didn't they tell them not to look back?
They did, didn't they? They said, he said, they said, escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. Correct. Very clear. Don't look back or stop anywhere in the valley. But Lot's wife looked back. Why does she look back?
Reminds me of the New Testament passage that says, when you put your hands to the plow, don't look back. I can't
Yeah.
help it. Whether it has any connection at all, I can't help it. That passage flies into my head.
Yeah, there's something to that. But what is it about Lot's wife? We don't really know much about her, but we can assume some things about her. Where is she from?
Is it from Sodom?
She's from Sodom. Absolutely. That's where he went. He wasn't married when he got there. He got married and had kids after he moved to Sodom. So Sodom is her home. Lot is he's a stranger. He's a sojourner. Lot was just a sojourner there. That was not his home. But that was her home. And I think there's this looking back. It's not simply that she, peeked back. There's a sense of looking back, of longing, and maybe even weeping and wanting to go back to this. And she becomes a part of the judgment as well. I don't know if you have any comments on the pillar of salt. And Jesus warns about her, doesn't he? Don't remember Lot's wife. Remember, he says that to us. I can't remember exactly in the Gospels.
In one of your Bible studies, this came up as an example, the pillar of salt. And I have forgotten what it was an example of, but it did seem to have significance.
Yeah. So let me see if I got some quick notes on that real quick about the pillar of salt. Escape to the hills. Lot's wife. So it just says she disregards the angel's instructions and is transformed into pillars of salt, engulfed perhaps in the fiery matter raining in molten lumps from the sky. That's all it says. So, but basically, even though she is outside the city, she shares in the same judgment.
Then doesn't someplace in scripture says that she remains a warning, that type of thing?
Yeah.
Salt kind of preserves it. You saw it out there in Arizona and New Mexico. You get these salt structures out in the desert. They don't go away. It's like like a forever warning.
Yes. It is. And so you'd see that, I think even to that day in around the Dead Sea, there's all those kind of salt structures. Let me see if I can find this Lot's wife. Let me find it real quick. What's going on?
She became an old salt, as they say.
Yeah. I'm doing a quick search on Lot's wife in my Bible here, if I got that. Not showing up. What's going on? Anyway, Jesus talks about that. Remember Lot's wife. Let me see, I got it here. Here we go. Luke 17, 32. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. Yeah. So the idea is she's that you have this picture of, it's really interesting. You have certain characters highlighted in this judgment scene. You have the absolute depravity, the wickedness of Sodom on display here, deserving of judgment. But then you have those who are not taking this seriously, the sons-in-law, who are just joking about it. They don't think judgment's real. And they're not heeding the warnings. And then you've got those who, even when believing in the judgment, cannot break their attachment to this world and to the things of this world and the double-mindedness of it. And so he says, even, remember Lot's wife, whoever wants to preserve his life will lose it. Whoever loses life will keep it. And so she's not willing to lose her life in Sodom. And so she shares in the judgment with that. It's a pretty terrifying scene in so many ways.
I've got something that says part of the temple offering included salt, was widely and invariably used as a symbol and sacred sign in ancient Israel. Salt as a covenant of friendship in cultures throughout the region. Eating of salt is a sign of friendship. I don't see how that applies. Signifies preservation and binding of a spiritual covenant. The use of salt in rituals like sprinkling during ceremonies protects protective barriers, showcase significance of warding off negative energies and evil spirit. Again, I'm not seeing how that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I like the word sign. The scriptures are full of signs, right? The Lord's Supper is a sign and a seal. It doesn't go away. It sticks right out there. It's kind of like a sign. And this is a sign in another area. Kind of reminds me in Pilgrim's Progress, when remember the road up to Doubting Castle. They put a sign there in the door for anyone other pilgrims who are coming along that they might see this sign.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a pillar of salt, they would build pillars as reminders, as memorials, as offerings, and so you have constant reminders of things that happened in certain places. So you have, if you remember, there's after there's a great battle with Samuel, and he sets up the Ebenezer, the rock of help, a reminder to them. They see that rock. They remember the Lord's faithfulness and help in that battle. Now, every time you see this pillar of salt, it's the reminder of God's judgment. This is the city of destruction that's under wrath, and this is a reminder of that. So every time you see that, you go down to the Salt Sea, and you see these pillars, these things of salt, you're reminded of judgment as you're looking at this. There's a day of judgment coming. That's kind of how I felt going to the Grand Canyon. It was like looking at the Grand Canyon, it was like a reminder of the flood, of like, this is judgment. There is a judgment. This is the awesome power of God. It was a fearful experience to look out and to see that, and to say that's what God can do. Bob, you're gonna say something? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, and I might not have caught if someone mentioned this, but it's not like she was looking back to see the destruction because of everything going on behind it, because they said that they couldn't start until they were in the city.
Yeah. So the son of
Because
risen.
for me, if all this was going on behind me, I'd have had a real hard time not turning around and looking.
Yes.
Yeah, they say Christians, we none of us here would want to admit it, but we've had some illicit, for example, relationships maybe before we were saved. And there's a time in life sometimes where you almost yearn, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, to look back at some of those exciting times.
Yeah.
And you ought not to do that. and she was looking back to Sodom, yearning, for her homeland, so to speak.
Yeah.
She ought not to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't think it was a question of like not being allowed to peek back and to see things, although it's just get out. There's a single focus. You're not looking back. You're not double-minded, and so anyway, lots of process. We'll pick up next week another interesting scenes with Lot and his daughters. Next week we'll get into that. So All right, let's
Thank you, Pastor Michael.
thank you. Let's good to see everybody. Let's pray. We'll go. Father, thank you for our time together. And we do pray you'd help us to be faithful and diligent in our service and faithfulness to you. Help us to honor you in all our ways and to not look back, Lord, to take these warnings seriously. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.